Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 507 of the All Dolphins podcast for Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. And before we start, we have to address the elephant in the room. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with what's going on. There's a little beef going on with a certain Dolphin podcaster who decided to do a show basically suggesting why the South Florida is not to be trusted and suggesting that one of the issues is that the guest to my right or left, depending on where you're looking, Chris Perkins, myself, Omar Kelly, and Joe Shadow, among others, don't know what the hell we're talking about. So it's time to address it and actually give it the attention it deserves. So anyway, the Dolphins had their assistant coordinators meet with the media on Wednesday, and that's what we're going to talk about. And as well as NFL rules changes, some news nuggets, and all that good stuff. As I mentioned before, Chris Perkins is joining me directly from the South Florida Sun Sentinel, or his home in South Florida, one of the two. Perk, how are you? Long time no see.
I'm good, man. It was good to go out there and talk to the coaches today, see what was on their mind. I don't know if we were surprised by anything that they said, but I think there were a couple of eye-opening things that they said, though, that are worth discussing. Liam Eichenberg. Yeah.
Now, okay, well, let's start there. No, actually, let's start with the first news nugget I have directly related to the Dolphins. There are other news nuggets indirectly related to the Dolphins. This one is very directly related to the Dolphins because it involves their preseason schedule. We have one of the three dates now set. It is the game against the Detroit Lions at Ford Field. It's going to be played on Saturday, August 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So that's in the week 2 of the preseason. In week 1, the Dolphins will play the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. In week 3, the Dolphins will play the Jacksonville Jaguars at Hard Rock Stadium. We already know through Jaguars head coach Liam Cohen that there will be a joint practice or joint practices with the Jaguars and Dolphins before that game. Remember that each team has allowed a maximum of 4 total joint practices. Last year, the Dolphins did 2 against Atlanta, 1 against Washington, 1 against Tampa Bay. Will they be going under the same setup, 2-1-1, or will they just do 2 against Jacksonville and 2 against either Chicago or Detroit? That's yet to be determined.
You know what, Pupin, we've discussed this. I want to see the 2-1-1 or what I want to see a joint practice against all 3 opponents because, again, the way training camp operates the last few years, the joint practices are when the starters get their most reps. That's when they get their most work. The regular training camp practices basically go to the second and third teamers. So the preseason game goes to the second and third teamers. So if you want to get a true gauge on how your starters are progressing against other starters, you only get that in joint practices the way training camp is structured nowadays for most teams.
I agree. And I didn't mind the 2-1-1 at all. I know it creates some travel logistical issues, particularly when you do them on the road. I kind of like it from the standpoint that a lot of times, not always, but sometimes on the second day of a joint practice, sometimes there's diminishing returns because tempers start to flare up a little bit, particularly because they're tired of going against each other already after 2 days, or it's hot and all that, or somebody continues after the whistle just a little bit and all of a sudden, becomes involved. No, you're not going to do that to me. Well, yeah, what about? And then usually the problems occur the second day. So if you limit it to one team, that's 2 joint practices, that's 1 instead of 2. So that's half the issue. Okay. So you mentioned Liam. Let's start there. Again, I'm the one who asked the question. I asked that on behalf of Dolphin fans who are kind of vocal about their displeasure. A lot of them are displeasure for Liam Eichenberg being re-signed. The portion of fans who would like the move like it if Liam is a backup. So I asked, basically, literally prefaced it by like this to Butch Barry, the offensive line coach. Fans are curious and want to know on behalf of the fans, what was it about Liam Eichenberg that made you guys decide to re-sign him? And this is the phrase. Perk, you want to go ahead and say it, or shall I say
it? You say it because you were there. I think I know, but you could get closer to the actual phrasing.
Yeah, he basically said he's the glue of the offensive line.
Yeah, a glue guy.
A glue guy. Called him like a great leader and all that. And then the last thing he said talked about his position versatility, but it was mostly about what a great guy he is in the locker room. He's a leader, good example for the younger guys. That's why they brought him back. And you and I have discussed this before. If he's brought back as a backup, considering the amount of money he's making, which isn't a ton, I think it was absolutely a no-brainer move.
I agree with what Butch Berry said. I wasn't there. I can't say I categorically agree, but I agree with the vast majority of what Butch Berry said. Here's why. Liam is a good guy for others, for the youngsters. He played a lot of football. I think he started 52 of his 60 games with the Dolphins. He's got some position versatility, so he's seen stuff. He's been in playoff games. He's been in regular season games, tackle, guard, center. Liam Eichenberg is not going to make the Pro Bowl. We all understand that. We all know that. I know this is
negative.
I know. I'm always negative. I'm always negative. But listen, if he is your seventh or eighth guy, you're doing okay. What I've said is that my big problem with what the Dolphins have done on their offensive line, their pledge to invest in the offensive line is really it only went 5 deep. You look at these backups, they're not very good. I think if you invest in the offensive line, all of your backups should be of the Isaiah Wynn, Kendall Lamb caliber. They're not. None of them are of that caliber. And so I think that, when you talk about investing in the offensive line, it needs to go deeper. And if you would have made that commitment, I think Liam is probably number 7 or number 8 as it is. He's number 6. And when you're number 6, you know how injuries go in offensive line. You're probably going to start 4 to 6 games minimum. That's the way the NFL offensive line injuries go. And when you have somebody as versatile as Liam, he's first man up. So, you kind of get what you pay for with this offensive line investment. And I guarantee you, Liam is going to start 4 or 6 games. If you're good with that, then that's fine. But I agree that Liam is a glue guy and he has a lot to offer those younger players. I agree with that totally.
Okay, one point I want to take exception with is next man up. He's next man up on the interior of the offensive line. I agree. I don't think he's next man up at tackle because I think, and Butch Berry mentioned they have 6 or 7 guys who can play tackle. To what degree of efficiency, that's a different topic for another day. Yeah. But I would think right now Larry Bourne would probably be the first back tackle off the bench. And
you got Keon Smith, Ryan Hay, but Bourne probably number 1.
Well, yeah, I know. Not a whole lot of proven talent there. If we're going to be honest about it. This is my annual caveat. This is the time of year, folks. Take what the coaches say for what it's worth, basically meaning it's a time of hope. It's a new season. Everybody's working hard. Everybody's looking good. Everybody's making progress. The way to gauge generally most of the comments is the level of praise that's thrown to a player, because there will be praise. And everybody, again, like I said, everybody's working hard. Everybody's looking good. Everybody came into shape. Everybody's progressing. That's just a fact. I say that as a preface to Butch Berry's comments about Patrick Paul.
Yes, that's where I was going.
From practice reps last year. And basically all he said was like, yeah, that's going to help getting a lot of practice reps. And it was like, and then the question was, I asked him with the degree of confidence that Patrick Paul's ready to, grab that left tackle spot and make it his own. And it was basically, he's doing everything we've asked of him so far. There was nothing beyond the bare minimum, which, again, if there's such a thing as criticism at this time of year, that almost would constitute criticism.
I was surprised that Butch Berry was so non-committal about Patrick Paul. And you so strongly advocate for Liam Eichenberg and you're non-committal about Patrick Paul. I find that a little bit odd. And granted, you're talking about 2 different levels of importance right now. Patrick Paul is a key offensive player. Liam is a key backup. So, it is 2 different levels of importance there. But to not have more conviction when you talk about Patrick Paul, your 2nd round pick from a year ago, the heir apparent to one of the most important positions on this team, that's concerning. I wouldn't say alarm bells are going off. I wouldn't say it's troubling. It's concerning.
A little bit, yeah. And again, it wouldn't be an issue if we're talking in September or in October, but in May, when generally speaking, all the comments are kumbaya and and a lot of this. There we go.
There it is.
It was kind of strange. I will tell you the other.
Well, let me say this on Patrick Paul. It also, I can't help but go back to some of these draft prognosticators who were thinking left tackle for the Dolphins, and I'm looking and going, they just drafted a left tackle.
Yep.
And I think Mel Kiper might have been the first one to be on that train. And then you saw a couple of others get on there with the Dolphins taking a left tackle or whatever. Butch Berry almost backed that up today.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that was weird to me at the time of the draft. That's like, they got to see what they have. I mean, it's like, unless he was an absolute calamity in practice last year, because in the classroom. Correct. Because in the games, there were some moments that were solid, and there were moments that were good, actually, and there were other moments that was like, yeah, he needs a little bit of work. But
you can understand him struggling against Myles Garrett. That's understandable. But even after his first game, which I can't remember what it was, and I asked Patrick Paul how he thought he did, and okay. And I was like, wow. I thought he did better. And you'll usually hear a player be upbeat. Well, I did good, but I've got stuff to improve on. And he was very lukewarm. And I took that to mean the coaches probably got on him. So it's been an interesting thing with Patrick Paul. One of the nicest guys on the team, always smiling. We saw him out there during rookie mini camp, sitting in a chair, watching the rookies practice. Very nice guy. But to me, I'm a little bit concerned right now.
Yeah, and that's one of the few places to be concerned. And we're going to segue to that. One of the comments that stood out to me, and let me just set the scene for those not familiar with how the Dolphins do these things. The Dolphins conducted an off-season program workout today. OTAs start next week. That was closed. And then after they were done, they brought out coaches in waves. They had 5 high-top tables set up outside the entrance to the media building and the communications building at the Baptist Health Training Complex. So it's impossible to be able to grab everybody because it's 5 guys talking at a time. Usually you kind of move around to the guys you were most interested in. So without having heard every single solitary thing that was said, I can tell you one of the things that really stood out to me, not that it's a shock, but again, when you hear it this definitively, when you hear Anthony Weaver talk about Jalen Ramsey in the past tense, that's like, again, that ship has sailed. I mean, that's like, and let me go ahead and give you the quote here from him. This was his reaction. He said it was asked his reaction when the news popped up that the Dolphins were going to be exploring a trade. Got to be honest, I've been in this league too long that anything I hear at this point, I have very little reaction to it other than COVID. That one, I had a little bit of a reaction to it. But this game, things change by the day. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Jalen. He played very good ball for us, but shoot, relationships are hard. Both mutually have chosen to go other ways, and I respect that, and I wish him nothing but the best moving forward. That's a solo Jalen. And then the next part again. Keep in mind, this is the time of year. It's also not like a coach is going to be like, oh, my Lord, we're in trouble here, because he was asked about his degree of confidence in the rest of his cornerback group. And he was basically saying, we're fine. We're perfectly fine. Good coaching, and they make progress. We'll be fine.
Boy, that is I'm hugely concerned about cornerback. Hugely concerned. And listen, look, if you sign Asante Samuel, Rasul Douglas, whoever, Stephon Gilmore, who is 104 years old, they're fine if they're the number 2 beside Jalen Ramsey. If they're your number 1 and say Storm Duck is your number 2, with Cater Kohu in the slot, good luck dissuading any quarterback from throwing at any of those three at any time against pretty much any receiver, because the quarterback is going to think I've got an advantage here. The quarterback didn't think that against Jalen Ramsey or Xavier Howard. You had to kind of think, do I really want to do this? And I know X wasn't totally healthy. X wasn't X the last couple of years, but you know what I'm saying. He still gave a quarterback pause. Quarterbacks are going to look at this secondary and go, there's 5 guys I can throw at. If I want to throw at Iffy, Ashton, Cater, whoever, and Storm Duck or Ethan Bonner, it's the best hope is going to be if Chop or Jalen Phillips or Bradley Chubb can get to the quarterback, or Zach Sealer. If they have time to throw, the quarterback is going to have all the confidence in the world. I don't have very much confidence in these corners for the entire season, because your number one cornerback is going to be somebody who on another team would probably be number 2 or number 3.
Yeah, and I think one thing I think folks should understand and realize about Jalen Ramsey, I think it's easy to look at a couple of the games where he struggled in coverage a little bit. Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson gave him problems. Those are 2 that jump out. He was used in a lot of different ways last year. When he was used as a blitzer, for example, he was very, very effective. Mm-hmm. And there were other games where in coverage, he was also very, very good. He may not have been like elite Jalen Ramsey, top 5 cornerback in the NFL, right, but he was still pretty good and still easily the best cornerback on that roster. And I'm with you. And Asante Samuel Jr., who's not a bad player, but he's got such a massive question mark over his head because of neck surgery, and then he's going to revisit teams in July. Rasul Douglas, per Barry Jackson, Dolphins made him an offer. Obviously wasn't enough. Went to work out with the Seattle Seahawks. Either they didn't like what they saw, or they made an offer that also was too low for his liking. Who knows what happens there? Stephon Gilmore, as you mentioned, getting up there. Clearly not the guy he once was, during his prime or his big days with the New England Patriots. So there are not clear, obvious, easy solutions, on the free agent market. No, I'm with you there. But yeah, again.
And I'll say this, Chris Greer does a good job at finding cornerbacks, and we know the whether you're looking at Storm Duck and Cater as the undrafted guys, or you draft X, you trade for Jalen Ramsey, you sign Byron Jones. I know there's been the Noah Igbenogany and for Drake Tankersley, there's been some misses.
And Cam Smith.
Overall, I think Chris Greer does a good job finding corners, but you're late in the process, you have no money, and you're looking for a number 1. If you're looking for a number 2 or a number 3, okay. You're looking for a number 1 with very little money. That's very concerning.
Okay, let's step aside from the interviews of Wednesday. We'll come back to those. Some of the NFL news. These are those that indirectly impact the Dolphins. Playoff seeding remains the same. The Detroit Lions pulled the proposal that would have eliminated the guaranteed home game for a division winner. To that I say, and why do I say that? Because your schedule is 6 games, 6 out of 17 is against division teams. Yeah. Your schedule is skewed that way. There's got to be a bigger prize than just making the playoffs or winning the division. And as our good friend Antoine Staley of the New York Daily News said, you want a home game that bad, win your division. It's pretty much that simple. So I'm good with that. And then the other one was the tush push, brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. It failed. It came close to actually getting banned. It needed 24 votes to be overturned, or for the ban to be in place. It wasn't going to be just a tush push. It would be any play where an offensive teammate is physically helping directly by pushing or pulling the ball carrier. And to me, I would have loved to see it pass. It didn't. It got 22 votes. And among the teams who voted against it, among the 10 teams were your Miami Dolphins. And this is interesting too, because the Philadelphia Eagles obviously are the king of the tush push, and probably the second best team at it is the Buffalo Bills, who voted to ban it. Why? Good question. Is it because they want to protect Josh Allen? If they know there's a tush push is available to them, they're going to run it. I don't know. I don't know why they would want to ban it. But not only the Dolphins, but the New York Jets and New England Patriots also voted against the tush push ban. Perk, explain yourself as to why you want that boring ass play still in the game.
I like the tush push because I think it is a football play. What I would ban is pushing or pulling a ball carrier 7, 8, 10, 20 yards past the line of scrimmage. I hate that. That is not a football play. But when you snap the ball and we talked about this in the press room today, Poop, there were different iterations of the wording here because teams run it in different ways, and some teams didn't want to ban the pushing and pulling of the ball carrier 10, 12 yards down the field. And I know that some of the wording said you can't push a ball carrier from behind. And it was like, okay, so that's a wide receiver after he catches a pass. And then it's like, okay, well, you can only start to push them, or you can't push them behind the line of scrimmage. And it's like, well, you don't necessarily touch Jalen Hurts behind the line of scrimmage. He's often at the line of scrimmage. So there were different little things in that. I think it's a football play the way the Eagles execute it because it is Jalen. You snap the ball. To me, it's three different elements. It's the offensive line, it's the quarterback, and then it's the guys behind the quarterback pushing him. That's the way Philly runs it. I think the way Buffalo runs it is you snap it and they just push Josh Allen without him running. I'm not 100% sure on that, but whatever. I think the way Philly runs it is a legitimate football play. Again, offensive line surge, quarterback pushes, and then he gets some help from behind. I don't have a major problem with that, but if you're going to ban that, ban all pushing and pulling of the ball carrier,
which is what I would like. I don't like this thing. I also don't like the idea that a lot of times on those is they keep the play going, keep the play going, keep the play going, and the defense is like, okay, exactly how long are we supposed to stop them before they rule that forward progress has been stopped. I mean, I don't like it. And here the other part of it too is not that we have a lot of those plays when the Dolphins are involved, because going off the top of my head, I remember one play, and I don't know if you were covering the team at the time, where teammates propelled a player down the field, and it was against the Los Angeles Rams at the LA Coliseum in 2016 when the Dolphins came back. They were down 10-0, and Ryan Tannehill threw a pass to Jarvis Landry, got stood up at about the 4-yard line. And all of it, the big uglies, the offensive linemen just come running in and start pushing the pile. Yep. And lo and behold, Jarvis wound up into the end zone. And it's like,
that's right.
It was a great play and great for the Dolphins, except that's a football play. I mean, I don't know. It was just weird.
Yeah. I remember that now that you say it. And as far as Buffalo voting for the ban, I don't know. That is bizarre. I have no idea what their thinking was. I haven't researched it. I don't know if there was some quid pro quo teaming with another team and we'll support your band if you support this next year. I have no idea, but it seems strange to me that Buffalo, a team that executes that with decent success, they don't do it often, but when they do, they're pretty successful. I did find it odd that they wanted to ban it.
And of course, the Eagles got petty on their social media account. They're like, "Push on!" It's funny though. Going back to the playoff seeding thing here is that issue is not dead though. Here's the thing: is when the league inevitably expands to 18 games in the regular season, it's coming 2026, 2027. Mm-hmm. When that happens, I think you're going to see a whole restructuring of the way the schedule is made. And then I think at that point, perhaps it might be more logical, or if they could find a better way of doing it. But as it stands right now, they're going to leave it alone. And the other thing that was decided this week was the onside kick, which now teams can use at any time, not only the fourth quarter, but they have to declare it and it's still such a low percentage play. It's to me, it's
Yeah.
and I get the safety issue and all that. And of course, on Tuesday was the NFL approving NFL players from participating in the 2028 Olympic Games when flag football will be making its debut as an event. Apparently, it's one player per team representing a country. How do we feel about that part? Do we care?
Um, boy, it's a great thing for the NFL in spreading the game globally and internationally. Other than that, Tyreek Hill, we don't expect that he's going to be of age or in a Dolphins uniform in 2028. So I don't know if that's going to be a factor for Tyreek. There might be a Dolphins receiver at that time or a Dolphins player, quarterback, who is eligible to play and wants to play. But at this point, I don't see anybody on the current roster that's going to be a factor for.
Devon Achane, no.
Boy, I mean, it's maybe he'll be won't he be close to 30? Let's see, in 4 years.
Well,
No,
he's under
he'll
25.
be 27. Yeah, he'll be
Okay.
yeah. Hey, let me say this on the reseeding. When you talk about the divisions and getting that leading to your home playoff game, if you ban the home playoff game for the division champ, you might as well ban divisions and just go conference by conference. Which yes, and now you're talking. And look, and the upside of that might be now that the schedule is more free. Instead of playing certain teams twice, you can play all these other teams once and spread your product even more. Always thought it was bad business for baseball to do that AL/NL thing because half your fans didn't get to see half of your product. And
Correct.
so now maybe if you got rid of the divisions and did more open scheduling, now maybe you could spread more of your product around the nation. More fans could see different players. Perhaps that's a benefit.
No, and if you're looking at certain divisions where like go through down cycles, like right now, if I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers ticket holder in those last few years, I got to watch Atlanta every year, Carolina and New Orleans have not been very good, or the AFC South
Yep.
not been very good. It's be nice to have some variety there. Okay, let's go back to our interviews. Again, everybody spoke to Bobby Slowick, the new. Going to make sure I get his title right because
senior pass game coordinator.
There you go. Thank you. Who's now working with his brother, Ryan Slowick,
Yep.
who is on the defensive side. And Bobby explained that he used to be on defense as well and got when he first started with the Washington under Mike Shanahan way back when with that superstar coaching staff that they had. And then got moved. And, of course, he comes over from the Houston Texans where he was the offensive coordinator. Anything else stand out to you from our multiple interviews?
No, I don't think Craig Ackerman, the new special teams coordinator, said anything alarming. I don't know that anybody asked about Jake Bailey and Ryan Stonehouse. Okay. And then I don't think anybody would have asked him about Tyreek Hill returning punts, which is the other thing that I probably would. But yeah, the punt off, and we know that Stonehouse was with Ackerman in Tennessee. He was an all-pro Pro Bowler or all-pro under Ackerman in Tennessee, Ryan Stonehouse. So you would think Jake Bailey's days are numbered.
Possibly, and I asked him like how much of input he had in that decision, and he gave the completely politically diplomatic answer, which is to be expected since he's a newbie on the coaching staff.
Right.
And by the way, in case anybody's wondering, why didn't I ask about the idea of Tyreek Hill being used on punt returns? Because the guy just joined the staff. Like it's not 99.99999.999 certain he would have said that's a decision that Mike's going to make, and I'm just going to coach the guys that were on there. So it's like at some point, it's some waste of my breath and
we don't know when Tyreek is going to start practicing anyway. He could have used that. Well, Tyreek will be ready for the start of training camp. Right now, we're worried about the guys who are out here on the field or whatever. By the way, I'll say this. My colleague David Peronis talked to Robert Prince, the new wide receivers coach, By the way, 3 new coaches, right? Robert Prince, wide receivers, Craig Ackerman, special teams, and Bobby Slowick, senior pass game coordinator. Robert Prince said,
Hold on, sorry. Unless you count strength and conditioning coaches.
"Oh, yes, that's right." Which Brent Callaway, right, is the new one, as I read on SI.com. Yes.
No, on Miami Dolphins on SI.
I'm sorry, Miami. Yes, SI.com is different, right? Miami. You're exactly right. I don't know as far as this coaching staff. How much change we're going to see. One thing that I do want to see with this coaching staff, and I didn't get a chance to ask Butch Berry, I know I'm going in a different direction here. I wrote a column about the physicality of the offensive line, and James Daniels and Jonas Savianea. I just butchered his name. Savianea. Savaiinaya, Hawaii, right? Hawaii.
X3.
I know this is terrible, Jonah. But I still want to see the Dolphins call a physical game, even though you have physical offensive linemen. I want to see you call a physical game, call a physical style, because when you had in 2023, you had Connor Williams, Robert Hunt, and Austin Jackson on that right side, 300-pounders, and you still didn't call a physical style. It was still kind of the cutesy Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, outside zone. You didn't have a pounder, a banger up there. So I would like to know if the style of play is going to change. You have more physical guys. Will they get a chance to use that physicality? Will you call a more physical style of game?
Interesting. I lost my train of thought here. Completely lost my train of thought. Ooh,
yes, I did too. And I don't even have my AC on right now. I don't know why.
Is that what happened?
That is what's happening. I don't have I turned it off when I left. When I went to work and I came back, I've been home for like 2 hours and I still haven't turned it on yet. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh no. Nice. I remember what I was going to say. That Teron Armstead appeared on the Chris Sims podcast yesterday and was asked about his 5 most badass offensive linemen, and right off the top he said Robert Hunt, and he was like, Robert Hunt. You don't believe me? Go look at his tape, Robert Hunt. So And then, by the way, I don't know if you saw this. He was the one narrating the Carolina Panthers schedule release video.
Oh no, I didn't. Really?
Their whole thing, their premise was unlocking the secrets. And so they gather a bunch of players, and under the assumption that they're going to unlock secrets about the schedule, and all of them reveal secrets about themselves instead. And toward the end of it, Robert Hunt got frustrated and throws the binder that he had the information in, and then walks off all pissed off. And then they show the schedule in a graphic.
That's good. So they know his personality and they're taking advantage of it. After a year with Hunt, they know him. Good. That's good.
And he's one of their more prominent players nowadays. So
that's great.
Good for him. And I do remember, I think it might have been, there have been some games, few and far between, when the Dolphins committed to the run and were doing the kind of running game emphasis that you just mentioned. I'm thinking like the second half of the Black Friday game against the Jets, where they were doing a lot of this. But it hasn't happened very often. And again,
hey, and I'll tell you this, Poop. I'm researching a column right now on the Dolphins' run game and how often it leads to victories. And I asked Studesville today, about the running backs coach about their record when rushing for 100 yards, and he pretended like he didn't know. But I said, over the last 2 years, you guys are 8-11 when you rush for over 100 yards. 6-5 in 2023, 2-6 last year. And I asked, how do you get the run game to lead to victories? And he basically he acted like he didn't know that number, which maybe he didn't. But he was basically saying, we just have to make sure that we score touchdowns and we make important runs. But I'm going through. I just started before we came on, going through the league, and I'm only through the AFC of last year. But the Dolphins being 2-6 when rushing for over 100 yards is the second worst in the AFC. Cleveland was the worst at 1-7, and then you had Tennessee was 3-7. New England was 3-7, but the Dolphins at 2-6, a 250 win percentage. Cleveland had a 125 win percentage, but I remember the days when it used to be when you rushed for over 100 yards, you won like 70% of your games. And there were all these numbers that if you won the turnover battle, you won like 80% of your games. For the Dolphins to be 8-11 when rushing for over 100 yards the last 2 years, that's got to be one of the biggest statistic anomalies in the NFL. This week I'm going to go back over all 32 teams the last 2 years and see who has done what when rushing for over 100 yards. I've got to think the Dolphins, out of 32 teams, they're no higher than 27 or 28.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it right now here. They're game by game, and those 8 games was the Buffalo game here on Thursday night.
Yep.
Rushed for 139 yards. It's
yep.
A good solid number.
And it lost 31-10.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. But then I think New England, Indy.
I was about to read it.
Ones.
I'll read it to right now.
Okay.
I was about to read it right now.
I was trying to go off the top of my head.
Okay, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll confirm. Go ahead.
New England, Indy. What was that next one? They didn't against Tennessee.
But they did.
They did. Oh, Tennessee, they did. So that's another loss. Yeah, that was the 3. They did 4 in a row over 100, right? And they went 1-3 in those games.
No, they 5 in a row actually. Okay, I'll do it. It'll be quicker.
Okay,
Tennessee,
you do it. Yeah.
At New England, at Indy, Arizona, at Buffalo, and they lost at Indy with 188 rushing yards.
Yep.
Ouch. But that's a game where they had the 2 fumbles, and also got stuffed on 4th and 1. That didn't help. Yeah. And then the only game, the 2 games in the back half of the schedule was San Francisco 166 yards, and then the Jets in the season finale at 135. So
they've rushed for 100 yards in each of the last 4 games against Buffalo and lost all 4. Because Buffalo is like, we don't care. All we're going to do is stop Tyreek. You can run for as many yards as you want. We're going to beat you on the last second field goal or whatever. That run game, it doesn't lead to victories. And I can't, this is, it's just mystifying. But I just think it's a strategy philosophy thing that you don't have a power running back. Your runs aren't effective in the red zone. You can get a lot. You move the chains. You don't score a lot of meaningful touchdowns. And I don't know how to change that.
Well, they scored a lot of touchdowns on the ground in 2023 with Raheem Mostert.
But meaningful. Raheem had 18 rushing touchdowns that year, 1 against a playoff team.
Oh, that's a stat you love to throw. I know you love to throw. You like to throw that stat out almost as much as the other saying. You're like, it's not a stat, but it's a thing. And the last 2 years, they just not been very good on 3rd and short and 4th and short, as we all know. We're going to wrap it up. Before we do, we want to express our condolences to former Dolphins linebacker Channing Crowder on the loss of his father, Randy Crowder, who also is a former Dolphin player, 6th-round draft pick in 1974, I want to say, out of Penn State. Played for the Dolphins for 3 seasons before ending his career with 3 years with Tampa Bay. They were the only father and son duo both drafted by the Dolphins. Dolphins have had other father-son duos, Bob and Brian Greasy, Rudy and Cantroy Barber, but it wasn't a case where both of them. And I was scolded in one of the comments, and absolutely right. Also, RIP to Tommy Vigorito, who was a running back in the early 80s, most well-known for a punt return for a touchdown in a Thursday night game against the Pittsburgh Steelers back in 1981. And for those younger folks, the Thursday night game started long before what they're doing now. I believe the Dolphins' first Thursday night game was in 1979 against the New England Patriots. So Anyway, so condolences to Channing and the passing of his father. And that's going to do it for now. We will going to be back here on Friday. Our next appointment at Dolphin Camp is going to be next week when we are allowed to observe one of the OTAs. Phase 3 of the off-season program begins next week. They're wrapping up phase 2 right now, and which are certain limitations in terms of what you can do on the field. They can do 11-on-11s during OTAs, but no contact, very obviously. So, can they do 11-on-11 or 7-on-7? I forget. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I have to look. Yeah,
I have to look it up because I don't know anything about football. So I'll have to educate myself.
Very nice way to bring it all the way back.
Nice. going full circle. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. He is Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Perk, when's your next deep dive with Perk?
We think it's going to be next week, previewing the OTA.
Very nice. In the meantime, check out his written content on sunsentinel.com. Check out mine and that of my team at Miami Dolphins on SI.com. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thanks, everyone.